meeting when we're going to go through the paired speeches. And our first speaker this morning is Mr. Jack Kantola. A large percentage of meetings today involve the use of a media projector and a presentation program like PowerPoint. Too often this powerful tool is misused, distracting from the presentation rather than enhancing it. Our first speaker today, Jack Kantola, will share with us his thoughts on how to create effective visual aids. Jack used visual aids hundreds of times in his business presentations. Through this experience, he learned to create visual aids and add power to his message. Today, Jack is fulfilling an assignment from the Toastmasters Content Pilot Program, Creating Effective Visual Aids, speaking 8 to 10 minutes. The title of Jack's speech is Creating Powerful Visual Aids. So welcome with me this morning, Mr. Jack Kantola.
You know, back in the 80s when I was working for Microdot Inserts, I was preparing for a corporate visit. We had a new corporate president, and I was discussing it with my boss, and he said, Jack, Bernie loves information. He just eats it up. He just thrives on information. So make sure you have a lot of information in your presentation. I took his suggestion to heart. I made overhead slides. There was about a stack of 3 inches of them. And we went to that, when we began the corporate presentation, I started going through my slides. Became very aware after about the 4th slide, when Bernie's eyes glazed over, they suddenly opened wide and said, Jack, get to the point. What's your message? Mr. Toastmaster, most welcome guest and fellow Toastmasters. I learned 2 lessons that day. Lesson number 1. Don't always take your boss's advice. Sometimes they have a way of leading you astray. The second piece of advice was, when you're using overheads or visual aids of any kind, make sure that they support your message, that they don't just repeat your message. And what I was doing that day was, every slide I had repeated my message. It was boring. It was too much information. We should use visual aids when we want to when we have to describe something that is hard to describe in words. We should use visual aids when a picture is worth 1,000 words. So today what I want to do is I want to share with you 4 suggestions on visual aids that will add power to your presentation. The first of these visual aids is when, back in 2001, Steve Jobs at Apple introduced the iPod. This is a slide that I would have used, right? A heading and bullet points. Each bullet point containing information that may be very valid. But in fact, what I would be doing is I would be repeating in the visual aids what I was saying. I want to show you how Steve Jobs did it. This is how he did it. 1,000 songs in your pocket. That was absolutely the sizzle of the iPod. That was the only message he needed to deliver. Now he worked his way up to that. He built up to it. So there was a level of suspense associated with it. But if you think about it, back in 2001, 1,000 songs in your pocket, the best you could do is wear 16 songs on your hip with one of the Sony DVD or CD players. You couldn't fit it in your pocket, and you had a maximum of about 16 songs unless you carried other CDs with you. So the concept of having 1,000 songs in your pocket was amazing. And he used that aid. That was the only thing he had on his slide. And then he said, I happen to have one right here. So that people could understand just exactly how small it is. It's the size of a pack of playing cards, and you have 1,000 songs. Now, wouldn't you say that was a lot more effective of a visual aid than that one? You agree with me that we ought to take this one out and just throw it away? And never use it again, right? And go back to using slides that sell the sizzle of your message. The second place that I tend to use visual aids is when I'm a photographer. So when I'm talking about photography, especially when I'm trying to describe how I enhanced an image, I can use a visual aid to help me do that. And let me show you an example. Here's a shot I took a number of years ago at Oceanside. It's a nice shot, nice old little cabins by the beach. It's just a wonderful shot in my opinion. But I wanted to turn that into an art shot. So I got rid of the power or the light pole that was under. I did a few other things, and I created this. This one is a message. This is an image that I've been able to sell a number of times. It's an image that pops and almost looks like a painting. I've had people walk up and say, "Is that a photograph?" Now I can't describe that in words. So a visual aid is very essential and very useful in that particular situation. So that's another use for visual aids. A third use that I use is when I'm giving communication speeches on communications. I like to discuss the element of paradigms that we have. And so I use a slide that looks like this. And I challenge my audience, using one line, turn that into 6. Using one line, turn that into 6. Try it. Anybody got it? Everybody having a little problem with it? Priscilla isn't. But most of us will sit and look at it for a long time without figuring it out, and you all know the answer. You all know the answer. It's so deadly simple. Here it is. Now, we were all operating under the Roman numeral paradigm when we were looking at that. We automatically go there. But it illustrates a point about communication that is incredibly important. And there is no way that I could express that point using words. You have to have the visual aid to be able to make it happen. So if you have situations where you're speaking and there is something that you're trying to express that you're having a difficult time expressing in words, consider using a visual aid that will help to sell that message. A fourth way of using visual aids is when you're trying to describe something that is indescribable. An example that I have of this I used in a speech a while ago about traffic in Hanoi, Vietnam. And you look at that visual and you go, how can you describe all that? It's a cacophony of sounds and activity. Guys on a motorcycle heading the wrong direction in the traffic. People are casually walking through the traffic. Things are happening here that there's no way that I can describe that using words. But looking at that video lets you recognize what it is. And I use that whole thing as a metaphor for management and leading life. But that visual aid is very important. The thing you have to be careful about is having one that is too long and making sure that when you use it, it actually works. That's an important part of that whole thing. So there you have it. There are 4 different ways of using visual aids to incredibly increase the power of your presentation. Now what I've illustrated today, with the exception of this handy dandy little iPod, is I've used slides on a PowerPoint presentation. I've done that because we're moving in that direction as a society. And there are so many situations in business where we have to be able to use that. We're required to use it. And that's something that we should be able to use effectively. The other side of the coin is that we have many visual aids that we can use. You can use physical objects. You can use a number of different things. You can use a flip chart. You can use a whiteboard. There are a number of ways that we can use visual aids. But make sure that those visual aids enhance your presentation. And if you do that, you too can maximize your message, power of your message by using effective visual aids. Mr. Postmaster.